Sweden and Finland's bid to join NATO has stalled as Turkey continues to block the two countries from joining the military alliance. It's been 9 months since they submitted their applications, a historic reversal for two countries that have remained militarily non-aligned. Roy Eriksson is Finland's ambassador to Canada. Urban Ahlin is Sweden's ambassador to Canada. Gentlemen, thank you both for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
I'd like to start, Ambassador Eriksson, with military support for Ukraine. And we're 1 year into this war, and this week both of your countries pledged to send Leopard battle tanks there. Is there a timeline on delivery? Is there a limit as to how much support you think you can give President Zelensky and his people?
I think we are there for the long run. We have said that we will support as long as it takes. And the Leopard tanks are... if you go to technicalities, they are slightly different from what I have understood other countries have been sending, because these are demining tanks, so they have the capacity to help the Ukrainians to clear the mines so that they can progress on the field.
Right, so it helps them advance, and also they have an enormous issue with, I think, 30% of their agricultural land having landmines put in there. So how quickly do you think your tanks for this purpose will be in theater?
Well, it comes also with training and service, and I have to say that we are exceptionally grateful for Canada, because all our military aid that we have been sending to Ukraine, we have utilized the transport carriers that Canada has offered, because we don't have that kind of capacity.
Ambassador Ahlin, same question to you. I think it's 10 Leopard tanks, am I correct on that Sweden has committed?
I would say that we are ready to help the Ukraine in the long run. And the only limit we have, more or less, is what do we need to keep for our own national defense? Mm-hmm. So our government is really looking into what can we support Ukrainians with and still be, having a trustworthy national defense ourselves. And we already have lots of equipment in Ukraine, like our Archer and our CV90s and so on. But we are, as Finland, fully committed to help Ukraine win this war.
You both use the phrase long-term, right? And we heard President Biden say that. We hear President Zelensky wanting this to be more of a short-term exercise, to get as much help as quickly as possible, the demand for jets, the demand for more volume of equipment. Does the West need to accelerate its deliveries to Ukraine to shorten this conflict as quickly as possible?
I mean, I would say, as Zelensky, if you want to give it to us, give it now. Because, of course, he needs the support now, and Ukraine needs the support. And we all want the war to end as soon as possible. But we want it to end with Ukraine winning the war. What we are saying, it's a long-term conflict, is that I think Roy and I agree that Putin is not giving up this. No. He's going to work on this for a long, long period of time. And it's important for us to tell our electorate, our governments, and around, that we need to be there for a very long period of time. This is not a short fix. We have to be, so to say, to be ready to actually support Ukraine for a long, long, long period.
No, and I can appreciate that, Ambassador Eriksson, to make that argument to citizens at home who wonder, why are we financing a foreign war, for example? And I know the G7 was concerned about this, of fatigue setting in and support waning. But I wonder if we have this sort of stalemate that's happened on the battlefield right now, and President Putin shows no sign of relenting. Does the West need to accelerate to sort of deliver that clear defeat on the battlefield to bring him to some sort of a peace talk?
Well, I think what is important is that the West keeps a united front. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it's not that easy to ramp up support, because as Urban was saying, Finland, we have the longest border in Europe with Russia, 1,300 kilometers. We would love to help even more, but we have to keep some reserves for ourselves. We have been given already 13 packages of military help. We don't disclose what we have given. This is the first time we say actually what is being sent, the 3 Leopard tanks, because we think that they make a difference. We have in total given about 1.3 billion Canadian dollars support to Canada, out of which 1.1 is military aid. So we are ready to do it for the long haul, and I think the West is also ramping up the production of military equipment, because that's where the bottleneck is at the moment.
Right, certainly on ammunition. I just wonder, you say you don't disclose what you give. Is that because of your shared border with Russia? You don't want them to necessarily know what you're taking out of your stockpile to send there?
That's part of the issue. Yeah, we don't want to give that intelligence to other.
Right, okay. So that shared border is one of the reasons you want to join NATO. Finland announced in May it wanted to join NATO. We've run into a stumbling block with Turkey. Jens Stoltenberg says he still hopes both of your countries can be in NATO by July. Do you share that optimism?
I'm quite optimistic that by the summit, both countries that are still in process of doing the ratification have done that. So yes, I'm optimistic about it.
Ambassador Aline, what's your sense of that? Because Turkey is a bit more hardened when it comes to Sweden, it seems. Erdogan is pushing for concessions like the extradition of 130 people they call terrorists to Turkey. Are things like that even on the table at this stage?
First of all, Sweden and Finland has applied to become members of NATO. NATO has its rules. All the 30 member countries need to accept that we will be members. I thought NATO was a defense and deterrence alliance. And if you ask me, I really think Sweden and Finland would actually contribute to the security of the Northern Europe. It would send a strong message also to Putin, who, in December last year, 2 years ago now, said that Sweden and Finland should not be allowed to join NATO. But it's up to Turkey and Hungary. These are the two countries that have not ratified yet.
Right.
So there's not much we can do. We are humble. NATO has this organization. They need to accept that we become members. We do understand that Turkey has security concerns when it comes to terrorism. That's why we made this trilateral agreement, Sweden and Finland and Turkey, where we promise to do things to help Turkey in this sense. And we think we have fulfilled that agreement. And also Turkey tells us, that, great advancement, we have done lots of good things together. So I'm pretty optimistic that in the end, we will have a ratification from the Turkish parliament as well. How long time it will take, I don't know, but I'm pretty optimistic. But at the same time, it's important that we stick to the agreement. Sure. We made a trilateral agreement. We don't want to discuss other things that is not in that agreement.
Right, but they still have this capacity to veto, right? So do you think you can get this done by July? What's your sense on that?
It's no meaning of me sitting here guessing, because it's actually in the end Erdogan who decides when will Turkey ratify Sweden and or Finland's membership of NATO. And it's up to them. That's how the rules are. The only thing I want is that we should be looked upon through merits, Do Sweden and Finland, do we fulfill the criteria to become a member of NATO? Do we enhance the security for NATO? Will we, be good and trustful partners of the alliance? I think that is the most important thing. But we see that there is a domestic, they have an election campaign in Turkey. And I really want it, to be about NATO as such. How can we strengthen the alliance? How can we stand up against what Russia is doing, and so on? How can we strengthen the transatlantic link? And unfortunately, the debate is about different things, And we can never extradite Swedish citizens to Turkey. I mean, we need to fulfill, the rules in Sweden. We have a constitution. We are a fully democratic country. And some of the requests from the Turkish side is not possible to do. And no other NATO country could deliver that as well, right? So we stick to the trilateral agreement. We fulfill that. We do understand that Turkey has security concerns. We don't like terrorism either. So if we can do something to fight the terrorism, we would love to do that.
Well, assuming it goes well for your applications, the word is accession, or we'll just say joining NATO, use normal language. Ambassador Eriksson, what sort of an alliance would you be joining? How much has it changed and been reformed by what has happened in the past year since Vladimir Putin decided to invade Ukraine? Because it seems like a galvanized and renewed alliance.
Well, somebody said already, and even President Trump alluded to it, NATO is a sunset organization, there's no need for it. And has the reality sunk in that NATO is really needed. It is the only buffer against state that has started or attacked an aggressive war against a country with internationally recognized borders, internationally recognized sovereignty. So I think it has a truly remarkable road to be a defense alliance, to defend also the values that we cherish so much as democracies.
Yeah, Ambassador, I was in Brussels in 2017 when President Trump went to his first NATO summit and gave quite a speech calling everybody freeloaders and really denigrating NATO. It's a very different American role right now with President Biden and with the situation in Ukraine.
Yeah, I'm very happy that we have Biden as the president of the United States. When all this happened, when the Russian aggression against Ukraine, I don't think we could find a better politician in the United States actually taking care of the situation, because Biden has been there, he knows it, he's been engaged in this for many, many, many years. So I'm personally very happy that Biden is the president of the United States when we are in this terrible situation as we are. But coming back to the question, we all know that NATO is the backbone of the security of Europe. Russia is threatening that security order when they are trying, to imperialistic grab other countries' territory, telling other countries that we cannot join the alliance and so on. So it's really important that NATO stand up to it. And I'm happy, as Roy said earlier, that we have shown an extremely united front, both in the EU, in the transatlantic, in the NATO, towards the Russians. And I actually think, letting Finland and Sweden become members of NATO, even though Putin and Lavrov and the others said, that we should not be allowed to join, is a strong message to Putin as well. You wanted to weaken NATO, you ended up with a stronger NATO. You wanted to kind of conquer NATO or kind of disunite us. You got a more united NATO. Mm-hmm. So in every strategic aspect of what Putin has tried to achieve, he has failed. And that is the most important thing.
Okay. Ambassador Ahlin, Ambassador Eriksson, thanks so much for coming in.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Pleasure being here.